Maybe you can relate to this. You've been working on your healing journey, trying to heal from past trauma and drama, and then all of a sudden, this unexpected event happens and you're triggered and you find yourself back at ground zero, maybe even feeling worse than what you felt like, because now you've been putting in all this effort, all this time, all these resources, and you find yourself back at that place. I've been there many times, and let me tell you, it's a sucky place to be at. But I'm here to share with you how I help myself get out of that and how I've helped other people as well get out of that triggered space and make it as short as possible so that you can move past it and be your true authentic self and continue on your healing journey and continue living life the way you are meant to experience it, which is whatever way you want to experience it. Hola, my name is Melissa Miranda, and I am here for Miracles Within Us. And I am super excited to be sharing this information with you because I have found myself in that loop. And let me tell you, when you're working on yourself and then you get a setback, and sometimes you feel even worse than when you know that something was happening but you weren't doing anything about it. And now that you are and you still find yourself stuck, well, I'm here to give you some lasting tools and tips to put into place so that you won't feel stuck in that place for so long, and so that you can move forward in living your life. Tip number 1, when you find yourself being triggered, don't be hard on yourself. Our worst enemy is ourselves. So the best thing to do is take a step back for a minute or a few moments and really just recognize, hey, I just got triggered. It's okay. I'm safe. I am here. Check in with your environment. You know, sometimes we have different experiences when we become dysregulated and triggered. Sometimes we can get to a place where we really get into that fight place or flight place, right? Fight, flight, right? Place. And those spaces aren't us being our truest self. So when you find yourself in that place, first take a step back, check in on where you are. Is this a safe place? Am I safe? And if you find yourself not being in a safe space, then remove yourself kindly from that environment and go somewhere where you do feel safe. But most of the time when we're getting triggered, we are in a safe space, and we just need to remind ourselves that we are in that safe space and that it's okay to take a moment for ourselves, right? So that would be the first tool that I would give you. When you feel yourself getting dysregulated, you feel yourself like, oh my God, I just got triggered. I feel all my worst symptoms. My body's freaking out. My mind is having all these crazy thoughts. I feel like I need to do something. Take a pause and realize that is your body responding to the trauma, or to the trigger, rather said, based on your past trauma. And I'll talk more about trauma stuff in another video, and how it could feel like in our body and things along those lines. But for right now, I want to give you some tools to kind of get out of that space. And so that's one, right? Take a moment, remove yourself from the environment if it feels unsafe. Even if you do feel safe, sometimes it's going to an environment where we do feel more safe and more in control. Okay, maybe it's going into our car and sitting in our car, or going into the bedroom, right? Something along the lines that allows you to just talk with yourself, bring yourself down. Another tip is journaling, and having those honest and open conversations with yourself. Now, sometimes we don't have our journal or things like that. Most of the time we have our phone. And one of the things that I started to do when I was getting really, really super triggered was sometimes I couldn't sit and write because I was so hyper vigilant. So one of the things that I would do is turn on my camera and talk to myself. And I know that sounds really, really crazy to some, but let me tell you how helpful it is, because I am sitting talking to myself, letting it out, and then I can go back and review what's happening. What happened to me? What was I thinking? What were those thoughts? Were they true? And then I could see how I was actually being dysregulated, and how maybe at times I felt irrational, right? Because that's one of the things, when we get triggered, we want to run, we want to escape, or we freeze, right? It depends. We all have a different response, and every time we get triggered, we trigger differently. But the key is to be honest and authentic with ourselves, and to be kind with ourselves in those moments. Now, sometimes it's, we're feeling all this stuff, take a break. If it's a conversation that brought you to that trigger moment, take a kind pause, kind step out, right? And so a great way to maybe address that, let's say you're talking to someone and they completely triggered you, and you know it, you feel it, and you know what it feels like when you're not in your own body. You know what it feels like when you're triggered, okay? And this is, you could feel yourself getting hot. Some people get hot and sweaty, other people get numb and cold, right? And so we all have different responses, but it's important for us to understand our own. Okay, and so when you find yourself there, take a step back, right? And if there's someone in front of you, and hey, I need a moment. This brought up some stuff for me, and I just need a moment to sit with myself, and see how I can still be myself, right? And if you can't have that conversation, if you can't say that to someone in front of you, they, and they just overly bearing, just take a moment, say, hey, I just need to go to the restroom, I'll be back, or I just need to take a walk, and I will come back to this conversation with you. The key is that when you step out, and let's say you are the one being triggered, right? And this is happening, and you step out, that you come back in when you are ready, right? And that you let other parties involved, whoever is involved in that moment, hey, I will come back when I feel more like myself. Right now, I don't feel like myself. There's nothing to worry about, right? Like, and you can tell that person, there's nothing to worry about. I can handle this. I just need a moment. Please respect that for me. Thank you so very much, right? And so that can be a hard place for some of us to do, especially if you find yourself as a people pleaser. That was something that I have struggled with a lot. I've had a hard time telling people no, or making them feel like they did something to me, or even if they didn't do something to me, but that something happened and I got triggered. I'm always really aware of how that may make other people feel. And so when you do get triggered, you kind of have to put that people pleasing self to the side, and really get more authentic with yourself, and realize this is a time to love you and take care of you. And the people around you will understand that, because they love you and want you to take care of you as well. Okay, so that's one way. And let's say you have a project. Maybe it's not a conversation you're having with someone. You have a project that you're working on, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, it brings up insecurities that trigger a response in you, that starts you in this rabbit hole, that puts you in this rabbit hole that's like, I'm not good enough. I don't think I can do this. I don't know what I'm doing. There's people out there who can do better than me. That's a tough place too, right? And so when we find ourselves there, it's also important to step back, right? And so there's a power with stepping back and saying, hey, I just need a moment from this, but promising yourself that you would come back to it. See, the key is to go back once you feel more like yourself and more regulated. Not to just dismiss it completely, never come back, because if you don't go back, then you reaffirm those negative beliefs that you have about yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm never complete anything that I set myself to do. I'm never going to get out of this cycle. I'm never going to amount to anything, right? All of these thoughts, right? And they go on, and we all have our own little dialogue, right? So just remember that when you're getting triggered, what you're needing in that moment is to remember where you are, know that you're feeling safe, and know that you are loved no matter what, right? A lot of times when we get triggered, It's because we've been through a lot of trauma in our life. And these traumas can range from a lot of different experiences that we occur. And the thing is that when we experience trauma, we experience it in our mind, we experience it in our body, and we experience it in our soul. And all of these places get impacted. So when we get triggered and it brings us back to that emotional response, then we are in that response in our mind, in our body, and in our soul. And so what's important is to come out of that place that's making us feel triggered for that moment and address our mind, our body, and our soul. Okay, and so one of the other things that has helped me is taking a walk, right? Spending time with my dog, right? Which she's right here right now trying to get attention from me. Hi, baby. Right, and taking a walk, working out, right? Getting your movement in your body, especially if you experience trauma where you felt violated in your body. It's important to move your body because you can feel that numbness take over and you feel kind of paralyzed. You don't move around. And if you can't go outside for whatever reason, walk in your home, do circles, listen to music that uplifts you. You know, that's another thing. Making sure that your environment is supporting your healing. You know, if you are, let's say, going through a breakup and that breakup is triggering abandonment wounds that you have from childhood, let's say, right? Don't sit there and listen to songs that make you feel even worse, right? Listen to songs, watch movies that inspire the feeling that you want to feel, right? Which should be around the lines of laughing, things that make you laugh, things that make you smile, right? Things that are gonna get you out of your mind, out of your body from that experience, okay? And I know at times it's like, well, I don't have the time to do that. I'm at work and I got triggered. Put in practical tools that you can put in at work. The number one thing you must remember is that if you get triggered, you are not yourself. Okay, let me say that again. If you are triggered, you are not yourself. So there is nothing worse for yourself and everyone around you to not be yourself, because your responses become everything that is not you. Your mood, your mannerisms with your body, everything, and everyone notices it, okay? Everyone feels it, whether they say it or not, okay? And so it's important for you to honor you. And when we go through a lot in our life, and we've been traumatized by many things, and we may have PTSD, we may even have complex PTSD, right? And there's different levels of PTSD, right? Like I said, there's that complex PTSD, there's acute PTSD, right? And so there's all these different places that we range from based on what we've been through and how we store it within us and what we make it mean. And then that brings me to the next thing, meaning. Meaning is a really huge component to healing, right? And what I mean by that is when you go into your healing, right, it is important to be real with yourself first, right? And know that you will have ups and downs, and that healing isn't about completely erasing it from your mind, body, and soul. It's not, doesn't work that way. You went through that experience. It's a part of your experience, but it isn't who you are. Okay? So the meaning that we put behind everything, right? So what I mean by that is, if you are healing because you're sick and tired of where you are, right, that feeling, well, then that's good. You're sick and tired of that place, right? The meaning is, I no longer want to be in this space. I no longer want to feel like a victim of that experience. I don't want to keep living out that. I'm more than that. right? And that's where we bring in meaning, the meaning of yourself, the meaning of who you are. And when you get clear and more clear about who you are, then and you start putting meaning into it, right? I am, right? So if you are, you could say, I am always loved. I am supported by the universe. I am a child of God. I am a beacon of light, right? You start affirming yourself, of who you are, the meaning of you. And the only person that gives meaning to you is you. You define yourself, give yourself meaning, and then you can also give meaning to the things that has happened in your past. What I mean by that is, if you went through, let's say, a traumatic experience of abandonment, right? You have abandonment wounds, right? Your parents weren't there for you. They weren't there for you emotionally. Maybe they provided for you, and maybe for some of you, their basic resources seemed really hard to even obtain, right? And there's a lot of abandonment wounds, which then subjected you to not getting cared for right, and maybe having experiences that you shouldn't have experienced, such as maybe you got molested or you were overly sexualized, right? And that happens a lot more than what we think. And so when we can see everything for what it was then, and then create a new meaning, right? And it's not creating a meaning that is untrue. I want you to be authentic and true with yourself with this, okay? The meaning is a meaning that is now, you can release your identity away from it. Yes, this happened to me, right? This was a part of my childhood or my young adult life, right? And now I get to choose the meaning of who I am, and that is not attached to me having to play out the abandonment wounds or the sexual molestation and things along those lines, right? And whatever trauma stuff you've gone through. Maybe you went through a really bad relationship, and now you're getting out of it, right? Maybe you were in a relationship with a narcissist, and you were in that relationship for a long time. And I've been there. Hello. I've been in narcissistic relationships, and I'm still healing from those things, and realizing I need to put things for where they are and put the meaning on who I am, so that I can get myself out of feeling like that person who was taken advantage of, who was manipulated, right? And all these things. I can move out of that place and say, well, now I know the cues, now I know this, and that isn't who I am anymore, right? I'm no longer that person in that situation, right? That's what I mean. I'm not that person anymore. I'm no longer in that situation, and now I can make better decisions. And the way that I can do that is by learning, by addressing, and by speaking up, right? Speaking up, using my voice, using the things that are available to me. If I feel uncomfortable in a situation, I can remove myself. I no longer have to stay in this situation that is uncomfortable, right? Which is, when you go through trauma, a lot of times you don't even see how you can get out of it, right? Not out of the trauma, but out of a situation, right? And it's like, well, I could just get out. I can walk away, right? And yes, there's repercussions to everything, but what is the repercussion of you staying? Right? You lose yourself when you do. Okay? So removing yourself, right? Addressing what's happening, put into place things that can help you, right? So the first thing we talked about, removing yourself from this situation. As soon as you feel yourself triggered, remove yourself. The second thing is to implement something that helps you, right? So for me is body movement, dancing, working out, taking a walk, right? Speaking to people or listening to things that make me feel and remind me of who I am. Right? So I will listen to motivational speeches. I won't listen to things that are affirming things that are triggering, right? You got to take care of yourself in that stage, right? Because that's the stage where you can shorten it up. If you get triggered, we all get triggered. If we've been through something, we've been through trauma, there's triggers, okay? And it's not to get triggered, right? Those are things we can't control. When our body starts to have a reaction and our mind goes, and there we go, poof, we're in the trigger. It's not to beat ourselves up for it, right? It's to recognize that you're in it. Okay, I'm in it. Okay, I'm in it. Now, I don't want to stay in this very long, so what are my tools? Okay, walking, running, dancing, listening to music, calling that person that makes me feel good, right? Putting in the things that work, okay? The things that are going to help you get back to you. The things that bring back the enjoyment. Oh, I'm going to watch that movie, or I'm going to watch a clip on YouTube or something that helps me move up, right? Implement what is gonna help you. And then the third thing is to really understand the meaning. Once you get out of that dysregulated place and you feel more like yourself, and believe me, you know the difference, you feel the difference, because we are meant to feel good, right? We're meant to just be in a more peaceful environment, right? It's not all happy and sunshine, but to be peaceful is our natural state. Okay, so that's how we know we're not being ourselves and we're dysregulated, is when we're not in that peaceful space. Our mind is going, our body's feeling it, so many things happening, right? So when you finally get yourself back to that peaceful place, back to you, right, then digest what occurred, right? Maybe not in that very moment, because you need to bath in that peace, like, oh yes, and celebrate it, right? Yes, I got out of this, thank you, right? And for me, I love to pray and things along those lines. So I'm like, thank you, God, thank you for helping me out of this, thank you for releasing me from this mind struggle. I am now back to me. I could celebrate myself. Yes, amen. Right? And when and then after some time, I'll go back and what was the meaning behind that, and how long was that trigger, right? Because see, the thing is, when you're on your healing, it's not about not getting triggered, okay? That it's about realizing that you still are in control, right? When we are in a triggered space and we've been through a lot of trauma, okay, the one of the biggest things that occurs for us is that we feel a loss of control. We feel as if we don't have control over our life, we don't have control over where we are, like everything feels out of ourselves, and that we can't do anything, and it feels so debilitating. But know that you are a grown adult now, and you get to decide now not to be in that state of being anymore. And I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry that you went through what you went through. It sucks, right? It sucks that you had that experience and now you have to deal with being triggered. But isn't it better to know that, hey, I could get myself out of that? Like, I can't change what has happened. What's happened has happened. Okay? Acceptance is key here. What's happened is happened. But now I get to not live that out. I don't have to continue living in that space. That's the power. That's the place of the juice. Is that you still have a say. You still have control. You still have you. Okay? You're still here. You still have you, and you get to define who you are. Right? And it doesn't come from outside of you, right? I know that a lot of times when we go through things, we're like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I like anymore. Like, it can feel very dull and like flat. And I say, go and try to figure out things that bring you joy, right? Maybe it's putting puzzles together. Maybe it's coloring. Maybe it's getting messy, right? Going in the dirt and touching that dirt and connecting with Gaia, with Mother Earth, right? Whatever it is, allow yourself to get there, okay? So I hope this helps you. I'm looking forward to your feedback. If you need to speak to someone, you can book the complimentary session I have here. I'll have the information below this video, and it's also at my website, miracleswithinus.com. And just keep moving forward, my friend. Keep moving forward. And when you get triggered, just know that you still have the ability to shorten it. You still have the ability to get out of it, and hopefully one day that same event can occur and you won't get triggered. Okay? So I love you, I love you, I love you unconditionally, and until the next time, namaste and God bless.